If you don't know for some reason, the popular gotcha tuber LenTotally has recently been exposed for grooming a 14-year-old girl. I don't feel like getting too deep into the situation, so if you don't understand the full extent of the allegations, I recommend you check out a video that explains all of it, which is linked in the description below. 12 hours ago, Len released a video that quote-unquote shares his own side of the story of the allegations. This video is just awful. All he does in it is make excuses about why his horrid actions are justified in some sick, twisted manner. It's full of manipulation and it's twisting the story to make him look innocent. For some reason, everyone in the comment section of this video is defending Len, saying that they forgive him for his disgusting actions and claiming that what he did was merely a mistake and that he deserves some sort of second chance. It sickens me that people actually think this is true. So today, in this video, I'm going to be dissecting LenTotally's response and explaining why exactly it's nothing but lies and manipulation, and why we should not forgive him for what he's done. The response video starts out with Len talking about why he took so long to make his response and a little apology talking about how sorry he is for the actions he took and why they were wrong. In this section of the video, Len claimed that he apologized to the victim herself and that she forgave him for his actions. Great! I think the video should have ended here, with him apologizing to the victim and leaving YouTube. But then Len comes up with this.
I just want everyone to see from my perspective and intentions.
Len then starts to talk about his side of the story and showing his perspective of the situation. Now, this angers me because the story is very one-sided. What happened isn't complicated and it doesn't have two sides. Len, an adult, took advantage of a child. Even if the child was toxic or manipulative or whatever, Len was still the adult in the situation and he should have known better. The girl was 14, he was 20. After this section of the video, Len starts talking about how he met the victim. He talks about their backstory and how they began to talk and how their relationship became stronger. Then, Len says this.
So, yes, she confessed to me through call. The only evidence I could find that's at least related to this is the date, February 25, 2020. So, what happened in that call is that she confessed. She said she loves me. I replied to this with, I love you too, but you're too young.
Len bringing this up only shows how he was aware that the victim was too young for him. So, tell me, if he knew the girl was too young, why did he end up pursuing a relationship with her? The fact that he brings this up doesn't prove him innocent. It just shows that he lacks basic self-control and that he is a danger to himself and others. After this part of the video, Len begins to talk about how he rejected the victim and how their relationship proceeded from there. After he's done talking about that, he brings up this.
On that day, I was very busy all morning until night came. As I recalled, she offered to give me those explicit images. In my perspective, it really gave me so much mixed feelings since this person made so much gifts, helped me out, and such. I did not really think it through, so I just accepted it. But then I slowly got interested about this. Over time, then I started to like it.
There's so many things wrong with this section of the video. If a child sent him nude pictures of herself, then he, an adult man, should have known to decline them. Len should have blocked the victim then and there, or at least told her to stop sending these inappropriate pictures. The fact that Len talks about enjoying these pictures is honestly just so incredibly creepy and disgusting. He was enjoying child pornography, and instead of seeking help, or at the very least, taking a break of social media and telling the girl to stop, he indulged in these paraphilias and acted like they were okay. Also, the fact that Len titles this part as The Mistake implies that the disgusting actions he partook in were merely some sort of mistake or oopsie he did. They weren't. Len commits a crime. After Len admits this, he starts talking about how he friend-zoned the victim and tried to keep the situation under control. Again, this just damns him even more because it shows that Len was 100% aware of what was going on and what he was doing wrong. Then, Len starts to talk about how he had a fling with another girl and how the victim was toxic and mean to said girl.
I'll refer to her as that, but the victim didn't react to this happily. I'll be showing a screenshot of how the victim treated Eliza. I have permission from Eliza to show this information of how she acted. There were a lot of fights that happened between me and the victim during those events, but sadly, it ended with me letting go of Eliza.
I honestly don't see how this part is relevant to the video, besides for the sole purpose of painting the victim as toxic or mean. It doesn't matter how toxic or manipulative or mean the victim was because she was a teenager, a child. Teenagers are mean and toxic, especially when they feel that their relationship with someone they love is being threatened. The fact that the victim was a little bit cruel does not mean anything when compared to the disgusting actions of Len. Len was an adult in the situation, and it was up to him to keep it under control. No matter how toxic the victim was, it's not an excuse to justify the fact that he took advantage of her body. After this section, Len begins to talk about the inappropriate relationship he had with the child.
The time that this is referred in the exposed video, there's a point where she mentioned these. This is really one of the biggest mistakes I've done because I agreed to continue.
In this section, he's blatantly admitting that he did inappropriate things with the girl. I honestly don't see how this part can be interpreted as him being good in any way, because all Len does is provide proof that he groomed a minor. I don't care if the child was okay with what she was doing with Len at the time. The girl was 14 years old. She was a kid. Her brain isn't fully developed yet, and she doesn't understand the things she was doing with him. Len, however, was an adult with full capacity of understanding what was going on. He should have been the one to break it off. He should have been the one to stop these inappropriate chats, but he didn't. He continued to use this child for his own sexual gratification. Next, Len talks about how the victim and him had a toxic relationship, which was eventually broken off when the victim found new love with someone else. Len keeps bringing up how toxic and mean the girl was, which I find completely inappropriate and irrelevant because, like I said, she was a child. Len now starts to chronicle that they were drifting apart and how he was avoiding talking to her. But then he says this.
Some people claim that she's traumatized, but in my perspective, she's literally open to chat me during these times, which contradicts a lot in my point of view.
I don't think Len realizes how obviously attached the victim was to him. Of course, she still wanted to talk to Len. He was an adult who she trusted. That doesn't mean her trauma and pain isn't valid or that she's somehow faking it. Her pain was very real, and the fact that Len seems to minimize it is manipulative and disgusting, and I cannot believe he's saying that while he's trying to apologize. After that, Len starts to talk about how he and the victim broke contact and how she blocked him afterwards. He talked about how they both went their separate ways and how they lived their own lives. He remarks about how she made an exposing video on him and how his life went downhill after that. This honestly just sounds to me like she was able to understand the abuse she endured only after months of leaving her abuser. I'm glad that the victim was able to come out with this information, and I'm incredibly proud of her for being able to muster up the courage to stand up to Len. Coming out with allegations of grooming is difficult, and the victim was right in what she did. Now, Len starts to regurgitate the same talking points he said before about how he kept telling her he was too old for her.
Since we mostly do daily calls, I did manage to get very old messages of me saying I'm way older and moments where I wanted to avoid her. October 27, I actually wanted to avoid her. The same goes around December 16.
But it doesn't matter if Len tried to tell her to stop, because in the end, he submitted to it and ended up having sexual conversations with the young teenager. It was his responsibility to end the conversation, and he should have stood his ground when she asked for sexual things. He should have said no, but he didn't, and he ended up taking sexual favors from a child. Like I said before, the victim was a kid who did not understand the sexual implications of what she was doing at the time, unlike Len, who was a fully grown adult. Then Len says this.
Anyway, if you think about it, considering that I wanted to avoid her, and considering that I shared about avoiding her since January 1, why would she keep on trying to stay in contact with me? I know I also have a mistake here since I clearly did not mention about a problem or things I've had to deal with. My mind was simply a mess during those times until I just completely avoided her back on January 1.
In this part of the video, he's basically saying that it was the victim's fault for pursuing him. No, it wasn't. It was never the victim's fault for pursuing him. She was 14 years old and Len was a fully grown adult. He should have blocked her. She was obviously extremely attached to him, and instead of being responsible and blocking her or ceasing their conversations, this adult man accepted sexual favors that a little girl was offering him. The blame falls entirely on Len. I cannot stress this enough. In this section, Len also brings up how he was in a bad place mentally. This is not an excuse to do what he did. Being in a dark place mentally is not an excuse to predate on someone more vulnerable than you. You should get help, not groom someone. All of this is a pathetic attempt to justify his disgusting actions. After saying this, Len talks about how he didn't want to block the victim because she was his close friend or something.
So, question, why didn't you block her? She was my friend. I genuinely was close with her and wanted to talk to her. Keep the friendship and closeness we had alive, even when it became toxic and strenuous. I simply care. She's also a mess like I am. If I just blocked her on the spot, I'm aware that she would start questioning that. Or she may be devastated if I did.
Now, this part truly sickened me. Like I said before, and like I will say 1,000 times again, she was a child. Even if you were friends with her, the friendship should have ended there. Sure, she may have been sad at the time, but it would have been ultimately good in the end. And even if he wanted to keep her friendship, he should have at least apologized to her for the horrid things he did and denied the sexual favors. Wanting to stay friends is not an excuse to be like this. Afterwards, Len begins to talk about how he didn't block her because he was afraid of her exposing him, which I won't include in the video because it's entirely pointless to refute. If you were afraid of the victim exposing you, why do those things in the first place? She has every right to expose you. Len then talks about how he should have blocked her, and afterwards he brings up how he wishes this would have been solved quietly.
I've already talked to my parents about this. They told me that this is supposed to be a personal problem. This should have been settled privately without involving the entire gacha community as a whole. The only things that they have achieved from this is damaging the community itself. If you look at my videos, they do not show anything that relates to the situation whatsoever. So as for those who expose and accuse me, why did you do it when this could have been settled privately?
Len is a public figure. He is famous and has a huge influence on the gacha community. His audience is entirely children. If he was going to act inappropriately, he should have thought about how that would affect his kid audience, or how that would make him look. As well, it's very likely that the victim trusted him because of his big platform. She may have seen him as some sort of idol or influence. A problem caused by a big platform should end with a big platform. Subsequently, Len thanks the people who have supported him throughout the whole situation and dismisses any rumors of him committing suicide or people pretending to be him. Finally, he ends the video on a note that he might quit YouTube. Now, it's obvious that Len made this video for the sole reason of defending himself with phony points that can easily be debunked. This response video is just him pathetically playing the victim and trying to get people on his side, which for some reason worked. If you take a look at this comment section, it's full of nothing but support for this groomer and people defending this pedophile. There are people claiming he just made a mistake, begging him not to quit or otherwise. All of these comments sicken me. No, Len did not just make a mistake. He committed a crime. He does not deserve a second chance. What he did was awful. It's not just petty drama or anything of sorts. It's a serious allegation that someone could go to prison for. He might have ruined this child's childhood, and he should be deplatformed so he can't hurt anyone else. He is a danger to our community. I am so disappointed in anyone who forgave him for what he did. I'd like to take a moment to call out all the gotchatubers who continue to support him after this and who use their big platform to defend a pedophile. Not Zoe, Miley, X-Sprinter, literally Johan, Akalia Life, London Scene, Redo, and Milfa. I am so disappointed in all their behaviors and of everyone else who defended him. I expected more from all of them. The fact that they are using their large platform to advocate for a pedophile disgusts me. Anyways, that's all I'd like to say for today. I hope Len is deplatformed, and I hope the victim ends up finding some sort of inner peace. If you're the victim, I hope that you can grow and move on. Thank you for watching.